The first time my husband laughed at me in court, I thought I had imagined it. It was a small sound, barely more than air through his nose. But I knew that laugh. I had heard it when I forgot a password, when I burned toast, when I asked whether we could afford something he had already decided to buy. That morning, sitting across from him at our divorce hearing, I realized how much of my marriage had been spent pretending little humiliations did not hurt. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. My name is Maren Holt, and for 11 years I was married to a man named Keaton. We met in a hardware store outside Madison, Wisconsin, on a wet April afternoon. I was buying blue paint for the tiny apartment I had just rented, and he told me I was holding the wrong kind of roller. Keaton was confident about everything. At 28, I found that comforting. At 39, I found it exhausting. Our marriage did not collapse because of an affair or one terrible night. It wore down slowly. Keaton worked in commercial insurance and came home carrying the tension of every missed target and difficult client. I managed inventory for a small medical supply warehouse where half my day was spent fixing shipment errors and the other half answering emails marked urgent. We were both tired. Money became tight after Keaton leased a car without telling me. Then my mother needed help after a fall, and I began driving to her apartment twice a week with groceries and clean laundry. Keaton hated those trips. He never said I should abandon my mother. He simply sighed when I picked up my keys. By our 10th anniversary, we spoke mostly about bills, schedules, and whose turn it was to buy coffee. He corrected me in front of friends. I stopped telling stories because he often interrupted to explain what I really meant. The final argument was embarrassingly ordinary. I had paid $186 for my mother's dental bill. Keaton saw the bank notification while we were eating reheated pasta and asked why I behaved as if his paycheck belonged to everyone. I remember putting down my fork and noticing a crack in my favorite green bowl. 3 weeks later, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. The bedroom window rattled when the dryers ran downstairs. I slept on a borrowed mattress and kept my clothes in cardboard boxes. It was not freedom in the cinematic sense. It was lonely, expensive, and frightening. Some nights I missed Keaton so much that I nearly called him. Then I would remember how small I had become around him. The divorce took 7 months. We argued over savings, furniture, and a credit card balance Keaton insisted was partly mine. I could not afford a long legal fight, so I represented myself during the final hearing. That was why I wrote the letter. It was not a love letter. It was not a revenge. I wrote it because whenever Keaton spoke, I lost my place. My hands shook and I forgot dates. So I put everything on 2 pages, the money I had contributed, the debt I accepted responsibility for, the items I was willing to leave behind, and one request concerning the $4,800 in our joint savings. Keaton wanted all of it. Judge Lenora Voss was a woman in her early 60s with silver blonde hair and reading glasses that kept sliding down her nose. She asked practical questions and seemed unimpressed by both of us. When I stumbled while explaining the savings account, Keaton leaned back and smiled. "Still needs everything written down," he said. Then he laughed. A few people behind us shifted in their seats. I stared at my folder. For 1 second, I was back at our kitchen table, apologizing for being slow, sensitive, forgetful, difficult. Judge Voss looked at Keaton, then at me. She noticed the envelope clipped inside my folder and asked what it was. I told her it was a statement I had prepared because I was afraid I would forget something important. She asked permission to read it. The room became quiet, but not dramatically quiet. Someone coughed near the door. A clerk clicked a pen. Rain tapped against the tall windows. The judge read my letter. Near the end, she reached the part Keaton had never seen. I had written that I was willing to give up my claim to most of the furniture and accept my share of the credit card debt. But I asked that $2,400 of our savings be returned to me because I had quietly deposited $50 from nearly every paycheck for 4 years. I had been saving it for Keaton. Years earlier, he had talked about taking a certification course that could help him move into risk management. Each time enrollment opened, he said we could not afford it. So I started the savings account contribution, planning to surprise him when I had enough. Even after our marriage began failing, I kept saving. My letter ended with a sentence I had almost deleted. I no longer wanted to fund Keaton's future, but I did not want the worst months of our marriage to erase the fact that for years I had genuinely believed in him. Judge Voss stopped reading. Keaton was no longer smiling. There was no dramatic punishment. The judge did not lecture him for 20 minutes or hand me everything I wanted. She simply reviewed the account records I had brought, confirmed the deposits, and included them in her decision about dividing the savings. Then she looked at Keaton and said quietly, "Mockery is a poor response to someone who once planned for your future." That was all. Outside the courtroom, I stood beneath a gray awning waiting for my bus. I had forgotten my umbrella, which felt typical. Keaton came out several minutes later. He stood beside me without looking over. "I didn't know," he said. "I know." Those were the only words we exchanged. 2 weeks later, a small package arrived at my apartment. Inside was the green bowl from our old kitchen, the one with the crack along the rim. Keaton had wrapped it in newspaper. There was no apology letter, only a sticky note saying he thought I might want it. I did. I still use that bowl for keys, loose coins, and grocery receipts. The crack is visible. I never tried to repair it. Life after the divorce was not suddenly easy. I picked up Saturday shifts for 6 months. My mother recovered slowly. I learned that living alone meant nobody replaced the toilet paper unless I did. I also learned that silence could be peaceful when it was not being used as punishment. Months later, I enrolled in an evening bookkeeping course with part of the money returned to me. On the first night, I almost left because everyone seemed younger and more confident. A woman beside me noticed I had brought the wrong textbook and quietly slid hers between us so we could share. It was such a small kindness. She probably forgot it by morning. I did not. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like and share it with someone who still believes kindness matters. Comment kindness still exists if you believe even one good act can change someone's life. I used to think kindness meant staying longer, giving more, and forgiving before anyone had even apologized. I understand it differently now. Sometimes kindness is saving $50 for someone's dream. Sometimes it is sharing a textbook with a stranger. And sometimes it is finally treating yourself with the same patience you kept offering everyone else. Not every broken thing needs to be hidden. Some cracks simply remind us where we stopped pretending and began again.